Eyo mambo vipi, huyu ni Collins Majale aka Kolo generally, and as far as leadership is concerned, accountability for responsibility is what's key for men, especially in this season. Oh man.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be. This is your coach and your friend Robert Brale. And of course, this is the best show in Eastern Central Africa, south of the Sahara and north of Limpopo, via Buhalalire, where I come from. Well, this is a show for men, about men, men who will inspire you, motivate you, men who have wisdom, great stories that will change lives. We are not looking for perfect men. We are looking for men who want to be better tomorrow than they are today. Men who are not scared to show their scars so that other people can learn from their scars. Well, last week, thank you for all who watched. We had the great man, Mr. David Itale, and from the messages we are getting, you are totally blessed. Today is no different. I have the privilege of hosting not just a great man, but a cousin of mine. I must say that. Yes. My first cousin. Many of you know him as Kolo. I simply call him Collins, Mr. Collins Majale.
Yes, sir.
Karibu sana.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
You know, it's funny. It looks like it's like I'm just interviewing my small brother.
Maze, it's a beautiful thing, man.
Asante sana.
I'm glad.
Well, before you go any further,
Yes, sir.
who's Collins? Okay, Kolo. Let me call you the way people know you. Who's Kolo?
Who's Kolo? Kolo is, first of all, a Christian. I am a Christian before I am an African. I am an African from East Africa. I am from the East African community, a part of a nation called Kenya. So I am a Kenyan, living in Nairobi, born and raised, blessed to have gifts and well known for my music, more so rap as a style. A musician of the gospel of Jesus Christ, and happily married to one wife, and we're blessed with a daughter.
How old is she?
Yes, she turned 10 July 15th.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes, sir.
You've talked about being a Christian. You've talked about you're known for music, and particularly rap. Mm-hmm. But yes, the people who are watching, they knew you from kleptomaniacs.
Yes.
Lazima nikutukane ndio ujulikane. Something like that. Nishazeeka bana hizo vitu. So people know you and they see a different man right now. Talk about how first and foremost you guys came together, because you have Nyash, we have Roba. How you guys came together? Were you in school together? Were you just friends in the same estate?
Okay. Growing up in Nairobi West, we moved to Nairobi West in the 80s, 88, late 80s. And in around 94, 95, I got to meet up with Nyashinsky. We grew up from the same hood. He used to live in Kodi Road. I used to live in Kisaoni Road. So we would meet through a friend of mine, the late Benson Katani, who introduced me to Nyash, and who told me this guy is also a gamer. So we used to exchange video games. We used to ride bikes together in the hood, play soccer, just hang out. And then by the time I was transitioning into high school, I didn't even know that he was in the same high school that I would join.
Nairobi school?
Yes, that's Nairobi school. And then Nyash would introduce me to Roba.
Was he also in Nairobi school?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right.
And that's where we hit it off. Yes.
But now you are a different man. Not to say that you're a bad man before. You're just different. You're now doing Christian rap. Why? Because it has been said, many people live secular to come to Christian music because it pays. Of course, now we are seeing Christians going back into secular, and we'll touch a bit on that.
Yes.
Why did you move to Christian? Was it an encounter? What happened?
Well, yes, it had a lot to do with an encounter, and that encounter was sparked by the need and the desire of finding my identity, especially growing up in Nairobi, where, you know, a majority of especially the middle class, of course, undergo through identity issue crisis because we consume a lot of content from the West and outside. But yes, my identity, I just needed an identity, and that's why when I found salvation, I accepted it. And at that point, it then defined who I am, you know. And as far as music is concerned, I'm referred to as King wa Rap.
Yes.
Confidently. Yes. So that style of rap had it was mostly used for the hip hop culture. But then, you know, I was leaving the hip hop culture and getting into the kingdom culture.
Okay.
And
Give us a sneak preview of hip hop culture. Women are screaming your name, and I'm speaking because there are parents watching.
yes,
And there are young boys who want to become hip hop artists.
yes,
But it also has some pitfalls, and allow me to put you on the spot.
yes, please.
A lot comes with it. Sometimes dangling with alcohol, drugs. I'm not saying you did that, but it's this hip hop culture puts you in such spaces. All right.
Yes.
What is this that you saw there when you're in the hip hop world that you'd wish for people to know that is damaging people if it's there?
Well, hip hop culture, first of all, I did those things. I drank, I smoked, man, drinks na mayanks,
Kabisa.
the whole shebang.
Is it because of the pressure? Because everybody, not everybody, most of the people in that culture are expected to do that. So you're in that space. Is that the reason?
Well, those are some of the things that I later grew to question about the hip hop culture, because if it's about being real and, you know, as far as rap and having that attitude, that hip hop gangster attitude, there were some connotations of glorifying sex and lust and hedonism, basically glorifying money, hype, you know, and degrading women especially, you know, because hip hop culture, when we were consuming the content from especially America, where hip hop culture really evolved, there was a big question mark around the men, because after I would do some research around that culture, I got to find out that the foundations of that is out of that community at that time were looking for an escape, you know, and so they ended up. It's mostly bred by fatherlessness. So these young people, as they were looking for something a space to escape to, then hip hop was available for them. But then hip hop, to effectively work and use, it needed a voice, and that's when it reached out to the rap style of music, which is part of other elements that make up the hip hop culture.
Right. So you did all that.
Yes.
Had you encounter, now you're a Christian rapper.
Yes.
Is that right? Christian rapper.
I am a Christian evangelist of the gospel.
Through rap.
Who said to know how to rap?
Okay.
I don't know.
Unaweza tupatia mstari kidogo hapa sahi?
Anytime Mungu anga ready
Hebu
maze.
tupatie tu kidogo. Look at that camera there.
That one.
Yes.
Mi sichezi chini na sichezi ndogo, tuwashe mdevo juu sipendi uongo, sisi si kidogo sikupi kisogo, flavor ndo tofauti na sisemi bongo.
Wow.
Flow iko tops, kumbe kuna soko, zinaenda nishaka chapati dondo, kaselasi ai nishakuwa kigogo, na shikamai kuliza mbuvi, Yesu ndo sonko.
Hey,
Au ndio?
we are sorry. Now then you got this encounter, and now you are you're in the kingdom now. What challenges did you go through the transition? Because were there things pulling you back? Did you miss Egypt? What challenges have you gone through? Because I want my viewers just to get to know this Collins Majale, and then we move on to other topics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the stereotype utterances that are thrown around are mse maze aliokoka juu life ilichapa hiyo side ingine.
Right.
But maze ka life imechapa hiyo side ingine si basi uokoke maze. I mean,
You know?
I mean si rocket science.
Yeah.
So mi nilichoka na hiyo life ingine juu nilifikiria ndapata answers huko na siku get answers juu at that point nilikuwa surrounded by a lot of yes men, and sadly ukiwa surrounded by yes men una lost.
Right.
So I had to make a decision because this came at a time where after we finished our US tour, the group disbanded. I would then venture into different other sectors within the creative cultural scene, which includes especially advertising and agency. So I used to supply for agency, scripting, writing jingles and stuff like that, mentored by some great people like the late David Ohingo and the late Eric Ndavi. So as I was trying to find myself within the same industry, I stumbled across, let's say, the right people. And I was still doing my music, but I've entered the agency life. And that's just another conversation altogether. So it was inevitable because not very many people make it out of agency alive, especially creatives.
How do you mean?
The demands, the lifestyle there is just ungodly.
Okay. And I'm sure everybody's just said what I've said. Okay. What do you mean, call it?
What do you mean? Like, we are spirit. And if you're not rooted spiritually, you're dealing with creativity. And creativity is the language of the youth, right. Especially the youth. And so when you look at the sectors within that mountain of celebration, you have music, you have fashion, you have sports, you have arts and culture, entertainment in general. And so a lot of ungodly things go on there. And those are some of the reasons to why I highly believe that agency has had a huge contribution to the downfall of the creative industry in general.
Wow. Okay. I'm tongue-tied, eh? Na mimi sikosangi kitu ya kuongea. But it's fine. Yeah. And then you have a beautiful daughter, who is my niece, great wife. What has marriage done for you? You're in the entertainment industry. You are in that space.
Yes.
And I know the pressures that go on in that space. So what has marriage done for you? Because I believe it has rooted you. Now, for me, who knows you personally, I can say that.
Yes.
But for the sake of my viewers, give us the things that have made a big difference in your life because of being a settled man.
Settling, I believe, in the context of men, has a lot to do with peace, peace of mind, a peace that surpasses all
human understanding.
And you can only get that if you abide in that transformational presence of God.
Right.
And so for me, it was a choice of going according to his will. And he told man that you shall leave your father's house, you shall leave your mother's house, and you shall go
and cleave.
Exactly. So I just aligned to his perfect will, and I found peace because then I get to enjoy being a man in marriage, because again, it's a vow between you and God.
When you talked about your daughter earlier,
yes,
there was this big smile that came into your face. Speak to us about her.
Tawala, man.
That's the smile I'm talking about.
she's guys are not even ready. She's just as her name says, she's Tawala. She's ahead, like how she thinks. She's my friend. She has a great sense of humor, actually. And I have more meaningful conversations with her compared to very many other people out there. And I believe it's a blessing because she challenges me a lot. You know, these young guys, especially our age, they are way advanced in their thinking and how they relate. So you can't lie to them. Sika venye zamani si tulikuwa naambiwa nakuletea chips na sausage.
And we believe. There's an uncle of ours who told me he will buy me 100 cars. I'm waiting until today.
Till today. Imagine. Now for these ones, they don't forget. And then if you don't deliver, they look at you and wonder, why did you have to tell me that?
Right.
You know, so Tawala is definitely a landmark in my life. And I'm enjoying mentoring her as a father. It's it keeps me sane. You know, it's therapeutic just being around her. And I'm thankful to God because at the end of the day, it's God's doing.
Wow. The joy the girl brings to you is very evident.
I can't explain it, man.
Completely. And I want, when we come back, I want us to delve into other matters because I know you're very big on matters leadership. You're very big on matters family.
Yes.
And there is a yearning, and you alluded to something when you talked about how the hip-hop culture came and the fatherless society and the people who are looking for meaning to life, you understand?
Yes.
And we are seeing a society that young people, and let me talk about the boy child, is groping in the dark because we have fathers who are alive but are absent. But even for the daughters. But there's an issue where parents, I believe, are leaving their children naked. Maybe they're not covering them, and not literally, and also the words they speak. And I want us to go deep into that so that we can articulate some of the things the young people are crying for. I've had the privilege of speaking to many students in schools, and you get many saying, I wish my father was present. I wish my parents understood me this way. But I want us to do that after the break. Well, many of you call him King Warap. Some of you call him Kolo. I simply call him Collins. Well, King Warap. Wacha tu nichoche watu hapa. Well, this is the best show in Eastern Central Africa, south of the Sahara. I'm your coach and your friend, Robert Broale, and this, of course, is the All Men Show. See you on the other side of the break. Well, I told you he's a great man. I told you he's a man of wisdom. And I'm sure we are not disappointed. We want to get deeper. For those of you who have just tuned in, this is the All Man Show. I'm your coach and your friend, Robert Broale. Best show? Where? In Eastern Central Africa, south of the Sahara, north of Limpopo. King Warap, okay, Collins. Collins,
yes,
Majala, eh? Okay. Now, we've had a journey. The first bit of the show, we kind of connected with you. My viewers now know who you are and have seen, you've taken them on a journey. But you have a passion for many things. You have a passion for families. Why is that?
It's where it all begins. It's where it all begins. And if you need to go into the future, you need to reflect on where you're from. In as much as you can't dwell in the past, you need to reflect on where it all started, you know. So family is one of the 7 spheres of influence, you know, as I got to learn even when after accepting salvation and, you know, being mentored spiritually, sitting under authority, then that word authority is in line with my desire to find my identity. And we were put on this earth to have dominion, you know. So in order for you to achieve that, charity begins at home.
Right.
Yes.
We are seeing a generation of fatherless children.
Yes.
And I'm not speaking fatherless by death. That happens, of course. But we have a problem where many young people are saying, both parents are alive, but I don't feel them. They are not present. Do you attribute that to the confusion in this generation?
That's a very, very good question. Thank you so much. I like that question. Because when we talk of generations, actually, it's interesting. As I was driving up in relation to this, I was speaking with my manager about quality life. There are people who understand the kind of quality they desire, be it in a product, be it in a service. And you can tell by systems. You can tell that through looking at the system. So everyone desires to live a good life.
Right.
But with the influence that pop culture has had even on families, what is really a good life? What is really good living? Is it having a lot of money? And I'm not saying that finances are not key. I mean, economy is another sphere of influence. But what's the most valuable thing at the end of the day? You know, it's for me personally, I believe it's relationships. And the only way you can have great relationships out there that can attract the value that is required, it begins at home.
Right. Now, I know you've done a lot of study spiritually and a lot of research on this issue of family. And I want people to understand something. What would you tell people who they see something that is very common in their family? You get where they say, that family has hopeless people. This family, have you realized, they're all drunkards. These ones die before they reach a certain age. You know, these ones are all divorced. And I'm talking about that because in our family,
Yes.
we have experienced a lot of deaths.
Yes.
A couple of weeks ago, we buried somebody.
Yes.
This Saturday, tomorrow, we are burying another person. So we have seen that. But culture, Western culture, has made us forget some of these things have a root. We just say, it was bad luck. It just happened. But what do you tell families? That there's a common thread in their family.
Yes.
And what can you tell them about that? Because I want you to go deeper into that.
Okay.
Because I receive very many calls and people are saying, how comes our family, people, when they're about to get to university, something happened. There's a lady I was talking to that they've realized when they're about to get to campus, people in their lineage, they do the first year and then they get into drugs. It has happened to about 6 of people from the same bloodline. Speak to somebody about that.
Wow. Culture and families. When I began, I remember I started introducing myself first as a Christian, then an African. And that is important because it's an inspiration, first of all, from, there's a book I'm currently reading. It's called Christianity and Culture by John N. Nganga, Dr. Nganga. And it's interesting because, you know, with, again, leadership of the world and the system, there's how things run, and there's an order to how things work, right? When you look at African families and the dysfunction that has spiraled over the years as cycles, it begs a lot of question. When you look at the inheritance that is rightfully deserved and according to God's word, that because at the end of the day, that's the only word you can rely on. We are yet to enjoy that plenty that is to be found within our borders, you know. And I believe that this far we've gotten to, it surely is Ebenezer, because when our folks were rushing into trying to get a living in this city, and positioning is key. Even actually where we fellowship, we say we are positioned for inheritance. So as far as territorial proximity is concerned, Kenya has a divine prophetic purpose of being a springboard of revival, right? Have we woken up to that fact as families? And what does that mean? Because in the season we are in, especially after post-COVID, it's like an opening and an opportunity. The door has been opened, but it's going to be shut. That same door that God, and a special shout out to Dr. Peter Odera, see, when God opens a door for you, no man can shut. But once he shuts it, no one can open it. So as far as families are concerned, and culture and bondage, struggles, there's an opening right now. And it's a season that God is really interested in, especially souls, you know. And that's where now my evangelism comes in, you know. Having been part of this culture as far as mainstream is concerned, I've seen what goes on there. And that's just a lie. So the truth, you shall know the truth and it shall set you free.
In fact, just a little bit, I'm sorry,
Yes,
I'm interjecting here.
No worries.
You've said you've been in that culture, but we are seeing, Collins,
Yes, sir.
but in this country, gospel artists now moving to secular. What do you make of that?
I like how you call them gospel
Artists.
So these are people who understand to some level, some sort, the art. But we're not talking about their skill level, because I highly, their skill level is questionable. So there's a misrepresentation of Christianity in Kenya in the name of gospel artists. And even if these are young people who have talents and would like to represent the gospel, then there's an order to how things work, and it begins with submission. So anyone who's transitioning from the gospel
To secular.
there's a question around their submission, being able to be told. And you see, even if there are challenges in wherever they fellowship, whatever ministry, that's your family.
Right.
That's your family. What's business all about? Business is offering a solution to a problem.
Right.
So if there's a problem there, try figure out what the solution is.
Are they in any ministry?
Come again?
Maybe they're not even in any ministry.
And that's a problem, because that's out of order. In my perception.
We'll still go back to the family
Yes.
issue, because I just want to, you just opened my mind into something.
Yeah.
So what would you tell the gospel artists, stroke ministers, whatever you want to call them? Because there seems to be a lot of confusion, and maybe there is lack of leadership in that space.
Yes.
Because we see a lot of confusion.
Yes.
But you guys are here, Collins. What are you going to do about it? Because these guys who are bringing confusion have come in after you.
Yes.
All right? Now, why am I asking you these questions? Because you've been on the other side.
Yes.
And you've said there's nothing there.
Yes.
All right? So why don't you guide these people, you and a few other people, call them into order and tell them, listen, I have been there. Guys, that life is a lie. Why? Now, since I'm your big brother, I'm allowed to kind of put you on the spot.
Okay.
Why don't you bring them to order? You and a few other people that are a bit older than them in age, in experience, and in the industry.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Because you know what?
Yes,
Sorry.
sir. Go ahead.
There are some young people and young boys, and we want to mentor these young boys who are seeing that lie and saying, man, I want to be like that. I want to have those big chains. I want to smoke this and that. I want to do this and that. What are you going to do about it, Collins?
Well, in order for you to be able to lead others, you also need to be taught and to be led. And, there's a process to everything. So I can say I'm still under construction and I'm still under submission. I'm learning how I can be able then to minister to the younger ones. And so, it's interesting because God has his way of working things out. And so currently, whoever who's in need, ask and you shall find, knock the door and it
Shall be opened.
So even this is a challenge to anyone who is in need of mentorship. You can't just chill over there and wait for the mentor to come. It begins with you changing your mind. And the only way you can be able to renew that mind is through the Holy Spirit. And that a relationship with that. So that mindset change is good and is required, first of all. So that then you say, yeah, man, I want to change my ways. I want to change my life. I want to do something new. And I want to work with so-and-so. So you approach that person, present your case, and then hit that relationship from there. But for me personally, there's a couple of guys that I'm mentoring. There's a couple of guys that we're working together on, and we are preparing ourselves. We are ongoing with our projects. We have a project going on, and yes, goals set. So a step at a time.
Renewing your mind. Knock and it shall be open. Seek and you shall find. Yeah, but also there's a place where, and this is where leadership comes in. Some don't know they need it. All right? They think they're doing the right thing. And I want you to look at that camera and just speak and tell the young people there is nothing there.
Well, I always love referring back to the word. It says, you shall not lead yourself in your own knowledge and understanding. Your wisdom is foolishness before God. And so therefore, my challenge to especially these so-called gospel artists and in general the creative cultural actors, be it musicians, beadwork artists, painters, graphic designers, everyone around that creative space. It's a time to seriously amplify dialogue around wellness, because msanii ni kioo cha jamii. Msanii ni kioo cha jamii. So what are we reflecting, and are we able to be effective if we are unwell? There's a guy who I took to fix a saxophone, and he told me I fix broken instruments because if you play a broken instrument, it doesn't sound good. And I look at especially vocal artists are broken instruments, and so perhaps dialogue around wellness would be a people's agenda to amplify, because our fellow politicians, as far as leadership is concerned, they're already having their conversation.
Right.
And it's loud and clear, based on the fact we're heading towards a very, very key year, 2022.
With the elections.
Yes.
Mental health among the artists is a very, very huge thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And I want us to deal with a little bit of the break and within also the young people, families.
Yes.
And I don't know why the topic has become a taboo until the recent past, where people don't like talking about mental health because they say, if you say you have mental health issues, then they call you mad. For those of you who are watching, I do believe you are getting some much needed wisdom. Let the society come back into dialogue as artists. Let the families come back together. And I want to urge every man, go back and take authority over your families, because our young boys, our young girls are crying for direction from the men. Okay. And women, of course, but since this is the all men show, allow me to talk to the men. I hope that we can go back to our families and apologize to our families and go back and say, you know what, we got it wrong, but this time we're going to hold hands, and as your leader, we're going to move forward. Well, I have here Collins Majale, King Warap, jina gani ingine? Kolo.
Kolo Mfalme, DEP.
Oh yeah, DEP. I remember DEP.
DEP ilitoka kwa De Picto.
Okay, so guys, see you on the other side of the break. This is the Omen Show, the best show in Eastern Central Africa, south of the Sahara and north of Limpopo. This is the All Men Show, only on Switch TV. By the way, if you're not watching Switch TV, I don't know what you're doing. And for those of you who are watching, please be like a beggar, telling the other beggar where the bread is. Call them right now and tell them something is happening on Switch TV. And they'll ask you, but where do we get this Switch TV? Well, you have Zuku channel 53, you have Azam channel 338, Star Times channel 473, and Signet free to air. Of course, if you're not watching Switch TV, you are missing out in a big, big way. I'm here with this great man. I said earlier at the top of the show, we don't look for perfect men. We look for men who want to be better tomorrow than they are today. Men who have wisdom downloaded in them, and they're releasing it to all our viewers. And today, of course, you can attest and agree with me that it is no different. Mr. Collins Majale.
Yes, sir.
Talking about mental health. What are we doing about it as a country? Because in this issue, it requires leadership as well. Why am I saying it requires leadership? Many people don't want to talk about it. Many people think the society will ostracize them, will judge them. And I don't want to touch only on the creative industry, because you deal with a wider spectrum. Families are dealing with mental case issues. Young people are committing suicide. Married people are thinking of suicide. What's the problem, Collins?
The state of the nation is a reflection of the church. And the church is where refuge, that's where the families should get refuge. So that shift, that switch of the mindset begins at home. Charity begins at home. And as far as mental health is concerned, I'm not an expert in that area. However, there are people like psychologists and counselors who would go deep into that matter. But from the little that I know or have researched around, mental health could either be behavioral or brain disorder. You see? And this is part of the reason why I'm pushing the conversation of wellness. It's a revelation that I got through the national anthem. I go back to music again. Our national anthem is a prayer, right?
Right.
And the last stanza of the last line of the first stanza, it says raha tupate na ustawi. And so I asked myself, what is ustawi? And then I got to realize that ustawi actually is wellness. And so one of the key pillars of wellness is mental health. And it's not a conversation you can finish in a day, but you can have it a day at a time.
Have you, as Collins, ever been in such a situation where depression, have you been in that space?
We all have. If you're a human being, I'm sure you've gotten to a point where you've felt low, and it begins again with emotions,
right.
And how to master those emotions. So I've been through that.
Right. I'm asking
phase,
because many people are watching.
Yes.
And they do get in touch with us, the comments on our YouTube, and you can pick a few issues on this area.
Yes.
What would you advise them to do? Somebody's watching right now and they feel alone. They feel there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Depression is kicking in. Because of COVID, people have lost jobs. Families have been broken. There's a lot of domestic violence.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
since you are, that's why I asked, have you gone through it? And
Yes.
of course you have, and
Yes.
you've surmounted that challenge.
Yes.
What are some of the things that you did that helped people? Because you'll be saving families.
Okay.
Men don't know what to do because they have lost jobs. They're wondering now, will I be able to pay school fees?
Yes.
You know, I was talking to some friends of mine, and they're saying, schools are closing. In 10 days, parents need school fees again. Well, COVID came. People, salary cuts, some lost jobs. So there's a lot of things happening. What are some of the steps you think people should take? Because their family is watching right now.
Well,
Or what did you do?
what did I do, and
Right.
what would my recommendation be?
Yeah.
Inspired by a quote I was asked during the Cradle Arts Festival 2019 October. I was asked my take on mental health, and I said healing for the soul starts with the renewal of the mind. And this is a quote inspired by my spiritual mentor and mom, Prophetess Nekesa.
Right.
Healing for the soul begins with the renewal of the mind. I'll go back to music. It is well with my soul. Wellness is a very, 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 very... Actually, communication is a key to wellness. Did you know that?
Please tell me. School me. Teach me.
Communication.
And teach our viewers as well.
Communication is a key to wellness. How do you communicate with your creator? How do you communicate with your spouse? How do you communicate with your daughter, with your workmates, with yourself? And that impacts your wellness. And so I believe, and again I stress, there has to be some sort of dialogue around the wellness and its 8 pillars. And this should be championed by especially the creative cultural actors. Because aundo kioya jamii.
Like in creative, all you're showing us is half-naked women and screaming and all that.
Those are unwell people, and that's why my question to I have
They're
a
what?
question. They are unwell.
Uh-huh.
They are unwell. What is the role of a musician? I actually have a conversation around that. It's on my YouTube. What's the role of a musician? Mental health for celebrities, and then validation versus rejection. And finally, post-COVID. We're talking post-COVID. Things have changed. It's a new dispensation. It's not business as usual. You're talking about kids are closing school soon. Taxes are gone up, and they're still going up. Gas
Fuel
prices
has
have
gone
gone up. Then I asked my lovely wife the other day, are people's salaries being ongezwa the same way?
That's not the case.
That's not the case. So what does that do to the mind of a man? What does that do to the mind of the man? It clearly shows you that the system is not for you. The system is not here to cuddle with you and make you feel at home. Yet, you're given dominion. But who gave us that authority back if it's not one Jesus Christ? And that purchase was made confirmed through his blood being shed. Because blood is thicker than water.
Right.
I told my siblings the other day, if blood is thicker than water, then I would rely on that one for Jesus Christ.
Right. Dialogue must happen. Wellness is a state of the soul or something, or soul?
Communication is a key to wellness.
Right.
But healing for the soul begins with the renewal of the mind.
Okay. Collins, what next for you? I mean, you started your career. I remember when we were young, we used to go for family functions, and you would win all the dancing competitions. So I don't know if you can get
Yes.
Mr. Job, wherever you are, please look for that video when Collins was ye high and you're dancing Kandabongo, man.
I'm kind of still of here, but
not much
mfupi kama rungu ya moi. Yeah?
Now, what next for you?
What next for me?
You're
man?
a journeyman. I'm saying, you know, from when you're young, then of course when it came to the public limelight, and then you went into the hip hop culture, you call it, and then now you're in the kingdom culture.
Yes.
You are deep into the creative. You're a family man. You're a great father, great husband. What next for you? Where are we seeing Collins 5 years from now, Pitson was here the other day. He says, doing, I think, a second degree. He wants to do his master's, and he wants to host a men's show. He wants to be the president of Kenya. So what next for you?
Growth, growing in the faith. That's what's next for me, you know. And that means going back to school, you know. Personally, I decided to focus my vocation around school, and I'm inviting especially the musicians in mainstream, go back to school. Get a different perspective, because entertainment is over. There's no more entertainment.
How do you mean?
People are not interested in entertainment the way they did. People are looking for influence, and especially around hope.
Right.
Because even in the season we are in, you can have $1 billion in your account but die tomorrow. And that's not going to help you. So it's a different ball game. Right now it's a turnaround. Actually, even according to the word that I received last week, there's a turnaround, because whatever battle is going on, if you're a believer, then it's God's battle. And that victory that we have is already confirmed by a manifested resurrection. So what next for me? Growing in the faith.
And creatively?
Creatively, I'm really having a good time being in school, because I'm learning a lot, man.
What are you doing in school?
I'm currently pursuing my diploma. It's challenging, by the way, because, you know, because of that lack of order within the music sector, being able to pay school fees has been a challenge, and also balancing paying for my daughter, my responsibilities in the house. It's not easy, but,
right.
And that's the reality. So I would rather work on fixing and bringing order to the music sector by being in school.
What diploma are you doing? What?
In music. So we have currently I have 4 units to revise. I'm revising to sit for my exam that I missed in September 2019.
To your lecturer?
Yes, to my...
I apologize on behalf of this young man.
Yeah, no. By the way, it was, to be very, very honest, real talk, it was because of finances. It's expensive to be in school. And this other side in my vocation, the music sector, Kekobo, MCSK, Prisk, you get a
Amelipwi.
si story ya atulipwi ni atujajipanga. So nataka tujipange fiti.
Okay.
Naanza kuwa the first person kusoil hands zangu by going back to school, so that then to understand kitu try approach kivipi. So, you know, and I like the fact that institutions like Kabarak are founded on Christian values. That's another thing.
So you advise guys to go.
Wasani warudi chuo jo.
But I'm going to tell you something. Let me be the advocate for now.
Mm-hmm.
The creative industry now has given these guys fame very young. All right? And I want you to bring something into perspective.
Yes.
They have fame. They'll ask you, but Collins, why should I go back to school? I have the money. I have the car. I have the fans. You know, I'm in every TV station. Why should I go back to school? These are very young boys and young girls.
Okay.
Now to become famous in in this digital era can happen as quick as I'm clicking my fingers.
Yeah.
So why should they go to school?
Okay. Having been brought up, born and raised in Nairobi, God has given me a chance to have some sort of experience here. And to be very honest, because very many families are unwell, you find that many people within the music sector do not like people who know themselves. So what has been the trend? If you're an artist and you know you're a veteran, like you know yourself, they would rather avoid you let's not work with so-and-so. He's going to give us a hard time. So what has been happening is, especially in media, they've been turning to fruits that have not yet, they are not ready. So they pluck that artist who's very, very young. They give you a check there, and you being young and you've not seen that kind of money before, and the attention, you get excited. Then they'll misuse you, and especially artists in Kenya, they are misused.
Are they?
Not by politicians, not by media, not by promoters. Artists are being misused because, again, it goes back to identity. And your identity, you'll never find it in money. Actually, money will expose who you really are. So why am I saying go back to school? Is because at least in school, there's some sort of order. There's authority. You can get things done with like-minded people there. Huku nje mainstream, it's impossible. You can't get artists to sing from the same score.
No. Go back to school. Let's heal our families. Let's have the very difficult conversations on matters mental health. Let's bring the families together. Let's have leaders who are worth their salt. Mr. Collins Majale, in one word, who is God to you?
My father.
If you got something spiritual tattooed on your body, what would it be?
The crown of thorns.
What's something in your house you want to get rid of, but you can't? All right, moving on. What is the one favorite activity from childhood you wish you could do now?
Play bano.
What is something important a grandparent or a parent taught you?
Love.
What is the one worship song or lyric that really has spoken to your heart?
Take you for your word.
What is one accomplishment people might not know about you that makes you very proud?
I'm Mindo King Warap.
What is a memorable quote or scripture verse that has changed you?
Abide in the transformational presence of God.
What's the
our 2021 word.
What's the longest you have gone without sleep and why?
2 days. Kesha.
What was the last thing you recorded in studio?
The last thing I recorded in studio was Ebenezer, a song called Ebenezer.
What's the craziest thing you have done in the name of love?
Fly to the UK.
What is the one thing you're passionate about?
I'm passionate about the word of God.
Take a minute to brag about yourself.
There's nothing to brag about here but Jesus Christ. That's all, man.
What team do you support?
Huh?
What football team do you support?
Football. Igwe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collins Majale. This can only be the best show and only on the best station. This is Switch TV. You can also find us on Zuku channel 53, Azam channel 338, Star Times channel 473, Signet free to air. Please, you cannot be dangling and changing channels. Switch your TV and go to Switch TV. The best there is, the best there was, and the best there'll ever be. I am your coach and your friend Robert Broyle, and I've been here with the great man, Mr. Who?
Collins Majale, aka Kolo Mfalme.
Maliza na rapid line mbili, haraka quickly. About all men.
All men.
Yes.
Boss kama Kalapina, bado tuko on toes kama ballerina. Kitako kaa utazame ujuzi, kesho pia sini siku tutalamba kamchuzi. Jina ni mingi tumesikia, lakini moja bado linang'aa. Hakuna aliyemsafi kama yeye, na si poze wala chibu au la. Hii ni matata uliza Kenzo na kudabodea. Najua ninapokwenda sitaja potea. Kwa neema yake ndo nanyenyekea, Bwana asifiwe, na si siri tunamtegemea, si kwa sembe tu, si kwa mlo tu, si kwa hela tu, si kwa mali tu. Mwanamume ni kumjua Yesu. Jijue.
See you next week. This is the All Men Show.